You don't have to. I think it's quite nice to. So here we are live for you once again. A very, very good morning. This is the World Cup Radar with myself, Adam Leventhal. David Ornstein is alongside me once again. And we will be reflecting on the England 0, USA 0 game from last night. We'll also be looking ahead to Argentina against Mexico later on this evening, which we're very much looking forward to. And we hope that it lives up to expectations on a day with another 4 games to get our teeth into here in Qatar. We're going to be hearing from Michael Cox, Jack Pitt-Brooke, from the English side of things, from Paul Tenorio and Alex Abnos from the US side of things. Felipe Cardenas is going to be joining us as well to look ahead to that Argentine-Mexico meeting as well. We're also going to be focusing on our latest radar player. We'll take you back to London, and Caoimhe O'Neill and Michael Bailey have today's selection. And it's been a little bit of a debate about who they should go for. So find out who it is going to be a little bit later on in the show. David, it is great to see you. Bright and breezy. We're back up again. It was very, very late last night from the Al Bayt Stadium. It's the furthest north stadium here in Qatar, one of the locations that they use for the World Cup. So we were back around about sort of 4 in the morning. And we're back up again, and we're going strong, which is good. David, in terms of the game, what's your overriding feeling? Because I was trying to work out if we were being maybe a bit critical last night, saying it was a bit flat and England didn't live up to expectations, and I still sort of feel the same.
I think it was a bit flat. Good morning, everybody. And I think there was a distinct lack of creativity from England. And that's something that Gareth Southgate did nod to after the match. I spoke to a few players in the interview mix zone afterwards, and they pointed out, if they had taken a couple of those chances from the cutbacks in the first half, we wouldn't have been having this conversation. And they're probably right. England weren't as clinical as they were against Iran. And there's a little bit of cause for concern when you see a performance like that and you think of the tougher tasks to come. But on the flip side, I think the reaction has been slightly disproportionate, which is not uncommon for England supporters, ourselves included. And, when you look at this tournament so far and you see the upsets that have happened and you see how some of the leading lights have struggled, you sort of see 4 points from England's first 2 games. They're in an incredibly strong position to qualify. They've got a relatively clean bill of health. You think back to the Euros when England drew 0-0 with Scotland in their second game and went on to reach the final. So, it's not a problem to be picking holes in the team and to be critical of Gareth Southgate, of the players, of the tactics and selection. If one thing Gareth Southgate has earned, that's credit in the bank, because so many of his decisions in recent major tournaments have been vindicated. So many of us have been proved wrong. It wasn't the greatest night for England, but equally it wasn't the worst. And I sensed the real upbeat spirit, actually, quite contrary to the flavour and the atmosphere in the stands among the England fans, but also back home as well.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because the first half, it did look as if England were almost being cool, calm and collected to start off with and picking their moments. You mentioned, Saka getting in down the right, pulling it back to Harry Kane. But then the US took over, and they deserve a lot of credit as well. It's almost as if you think, well, no, England should have won this game, no question. But the US deserve credit.
Yeah, they're an incredibly well-organised team.
Yeah.
And, I think there were a few people pointing out that this was more like a Jesse Marsh, Leeds United side. Of course, they've got a number of the players in the squad. And that means intensity, that means pressing, it means great fitness levels, it means great positional awareness, and they would have had a plan to stifle England. England have actually never beaten the USA in is it 3 meetings now at a World Cup, and I was extremely impressed with the number of their players, and I don't think that's to let England off the hook in any way. I just think when you saw Tyler Adams display, when you saw Yunus Musa, who I managed to speak to after the game, it was a really nice chat. When you see the defensive resilience of actually Tim Ream, I thought he was brilliant in the air, on the ground. His ability to basically stop Harry Kane doing from anything like we're used to seeing from him. They were trouble for England, and I think Gareth Southgate's attracting a lot of criticism back home now for being a little bit timid, perhaps, playing too conservatively. Not using Phil Foden. He answered all of those things, whether we like it or not. He clearly knew how damaging a defeat would have been. And at one point, when the USA were applying pressure in the second half in particular, and when Christian Pulisic hit the bar, defeat was a credible possibility. And that would have been disastrous for England heading into the Wales fixture. They come away from it unbeaten with a draw against a high-level opponent, much higher than, in my opinion, the likes of Saudi Arabia, who beat Argentina, of Japan, perhaps even, who beat the USA, who beat Germany. And so all in all, when the dust settles and everybody calms down, there's been an incredible amount of talk over the last few hours, and understandably so. England will return to their training base this afternoon. We'll be able to see them for 15 minutes. It's likely just to be the players who didn't start that come out onto the grass. And then they'll build into the week and a massive fixture against Wales. It will all go down to the final day, but it would be a major turn up if England don't make it through.
I think it was a performance that was quite similar to the draw against Scotland last year, the second Euros group game. Gareth Southgate really happy with the point. England won the first game. He knew that if England got the point here, they're going to be in control of the group. It would take something quite spectacular against Wales, really, for the situation to go badly for England. That said, I think it was a poor performance. I think there was a lack of ambition, really, from the outset that was quite surprising against a side that England should hope to be beating. And I thought the lack of substitutions was quite odd. I mean, on one level, that does say something about the game plan and the ambition and the contentment with the point. But I think when England got so many talented options in reserve, I think more than we've had for a very long time, just the lack of interest in almost rolling the dice a little bit early in the 67th minute, I thought was really quite surprising.
Yeah, so that was Michael Cox speaking after the game last night at the Al Bayt Stadium. And yeah, he wasn't particularly impressed. I was sat next to him during the game, and we were in an elevated position, which is perfect for someone who writes about football analytics, in Michael Cox. We can also bring you the reaction of Jack Pitt-Brooke. We'll speak to David in a moment about who he caught up with in the mix zone. But Jack Pitt-Brooke was in that news conference with Gareth Southgate after the game. And, well, I think it's fair to say that maybe Jack and Gareth's takes on the game didn't really marry up very well.
So I thought England were pretty bad. I thought that they allowed the USA to play much better football for most of the first half and most of the second half. I thought England really lacked intensity. They weren't able to press the USA. I know that Harry Kane should really have won it with that header in added time, but to be honest, the US had better chances before then. So yeah, really disappointed. I thought England were a bit out-motivated, out-passioned, outrun by the US. We've just come from Gareth Southgate's press conference. That's not really how he saw it at all. He ascribed the US's dominant possession down to some little kind of tactical issues in the game. He was very pleased with his application. Maybe he's just saying that because he doesn't want to create a negative headline. Maybe that's what he actually thinks. But yeah, overall, I was pretty disappointed with how he played today.
So yeah, that was Jack Pitt-Brooke, who wasn't really impressed. And you can read what both Michael Cox and Jack Pitt-Brooke made of the game on The Athletic in your usual places, of course. There is also a podcast out at the moment, the Athletic Football Podcast, which I recorded in the aftermath of the game, the immediate aftermath of the game, with the likes of Michael, Jack Pitbrook, our US writers as well. So we heard Jack's take on what Gareth Southgate made of it. And it was interesting because basically Gareth Southgate said about the booing issue, were we booed? I can't work it out whether it was entirely England fans that were booing the performance or if it was both sets of fans just booing the fact that it was a 0-0.
Well, Kieran Trippier was the first to come out to us in the mix zone, and I had a really good chat with him in which one of the first things he said, and he said it very resolutely, was that he didn't hear the booing. And I sort of came back to him and said, well, it was clearly audible.
Yeah.
And in my view, I don't want to make a bigger deal of it than it was. It was directed at England. It came from my left side, which is where all the England fans were.
Sure.
The USA were mainly to the right, and I didn't hear the booing particularly coming from that direction. We see this in Premier League games all the time now. We see it at Wembley all the time when England play and haven't done well for a half. And I can understand it because England did not really push for the win, it's fair to say. If they had, they would have probably introduced the likes of Phil Foden, Callum Wilson from the bench and laid siege to the USA goal, and they were doing nothing of the sort towards the end. And that's a source of great frustration for all of us. However, you need to step back and take perspective on this and see the position England are in. I don't think they played disastrously by any means. There were some plus points. I thought Harry Maguire again was really good and resolute in defence. He was actually almost Harry Dino when he was trying to cut in from the byline in the first half. I thought Luke Shaw was good again, a bit quieter for Jude Bellingham. Declan Rice keeps it ticking over. It wasn't as effective a game from Mason Mount. And that's the creative question that's going to come Gareth Southgate's way now. He says that he was reluctant to play Phil Foden centrally because he doesn't play there for his club. But I think he's shown with other decisions that he's got the flexibility. I'm not so sure about that comment. I thought Harry Kane looked pretty fatigued, actually. And we know
a lot of them did. I thought they looked just a step off, didn't they?
They did. I thought Bukayo Saka, who's a player I've got huge admiration for, was way off of his top level. Yeah. I think Raheem Sterling was nowhere near where he or we would expect him to be, especially after that first performance and his England track record. However, I do sympathise with some of the comments from Kieran Trippier in the mix zone, Jordan Henderson, Jack Grealish, Jordan Pickford. They almost are of the view, we want to win this tournament. That's our expectation. We're unbeaten so far. I remember England at the 2003 Rugby World Cup, where Clive Woodward and the players were very clear in saying they are only here for the results. It doesn't matter how they come about. We're here to win it. They went and won it. I know it's a little bit different. I know when you look at the style of a Spain, for example, in this tournament, you say, how are we going to compete with that? England still have a chance to grow into the tournament. I would expect them to get through. Whether it's in first or second place is going to be the big question. And then it's down to the knockout stage. And we've seen before that they can go far in recent years. And actually, I would expect them to, again, why? Because defensively, they look as good as most of the top teams at the moment. It's not perfect by any means, but I don't think there's as much cause for concern as maybe social media and some of the wider coverage in reaction to last night's match has indicated.
Yeah. Let's be brutally honest. England fans, they get a bit panicky when things don't go slightly to plan, but they have picked up a point and they have got one step in the knockout stages. It's going to come down to an incredible game from the US side of things against Iran. Obviously, there's still a lot riding on England against Wales, but US against Iran in that final group game is tantalizing, to say the least. And we can get the reaction of some of our US team now on the Athletic. Obviously, we're a transatlantic operation. And let's start off with Paul Tenorio, who gave us his reaction to that 0-0 draw last night.
We're walking out of Al Bayt Stadium after a 0-0 draw here tonight. The U.S. national team, I thought, put in one of the better performances I've seen over the last few years. They were confident. They took the game to England. They had the better of play for long stretches. But, the one thing they didn't do was put the ball in the back of the net. So just 1 point out of this game. In that way, it feels very similar to Wales But the U.S. will know now that they go into the game against Iran, the group finale, needing a win to advance and go to the knockouts. So the knockout rounds start early for the U.S., but overall, I think this team's going to feel good about that result. I think they're going to feel positive. I think pretty much anyone watching the game is going to feel positive about what the U.S. did in this one. A really strong performance despite just 1 point, and I think overall, again, something really to build on for this national team.
Yeah, so Paul Tenorio in positive mood after that 0-0 draw. I think, as David was mentioning, we'll have a little bit more from David Ornstein in a moment's time. We'll also be joined by Felipe Cardenas. That maybe England sort of saying, oh, no, we're quite happy with that 0-0 draw. The USA came very, very close. You remember those chances, as mentioned earlier, from McKennie and from Pulisic. I think maybe they ran out of steam a little bit in the second half, though. Let's now focus on that next game and the general feeling of the United States fans from Alex Abnos, who gave us his reaction, just talking about an opportunity to really impress those fans who maybe aren't that into soccer in the United States on this Thanksgiving weekend, and the unfortunate fact that it was a little bit of a damp squib in the end.
It is disappointing. I wish I could say that it wasn't, because I understand that this was a very, very big result for the U.S. national team. I understand that we had really great performances all over the pitch. I understand that we matched up well with England, they showed in the first game of the World Cup that they're an incredible team. But I don't think that Joe Schmo, American sports fan, is necessarily going to understand that. I think many will, but there are a large chunk of people that are going to look at the score and say it's 0-0. Except they won't say 0-0. They'll say it's 0-0. It's nothing. Soccer's a boring sport, and this is yet even more evidence of it. This is supposedly the big game, the best that we have to offer, and we get nothing out of it, even though we actually got a point out of it. I'm not trying to insult or talk down to American sports fans. I grew up in the Midwest. This is how it is. And I think to some degree it's a missed opportunity, and that's too bad. But you know what? If the U.S. makes it out of the group and they end up playing a really big time second round game, maybe against a team like the Netherlands or a team that people do understand is extremely good at soccer, there's a chance to have this moment back and create something really, really special.
And that game against Iran now, the magnitude, it almost doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
No, I mean, it does bear thinking about, because I was thinking about it the entire 90 minutes of this game. Because I was at the Wales-Iran game earlier today, and it was very clear when Iran was able to pull out a 2-0 win in stoppage time, hugely emotional moment, that the sort of landscape of this group had been turned around. Iran was down and out. They were clearly going to get walked over by anybody that they played, and that is clearly not going to be the case anymore. They showed a different side of themselves against Wales. I don't think they're going to come out as conservatively as they did against England. They understand that the U.S. is talented. Carlos Queiroz said as much in his press conference. But they're going to come out and want to attack, and the U.S. is going to want to do the same. And that's before we even get into all the cultural and political angles that are going to be flying around all throughout this game. It's going to be a really, really, really big one. Just as a spectacle, I kind of can't wait for it. But as a soccer event, as somebody that is invested in both countries, because I watch a lot of Iran, I'm sort of dreading it. It's this special mix of dread and anticipation and excitement, and I think it's going to be really, really special.
I'm on mute. I don't know how that happens. Hello and welcome to the Radar. I'm Caoimhe O'Neill, and we've got another clip coming up for you, which we discussed. This man behind me and Michael Bailey yesterday had a good old chat, and yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
We were discussing this. I think you used the word arguing, but I don't know if that's entirely true. But we were discussing
a little debate.
Friendly
debate.
We wanted it to be an Argentine player because they've got a big game coming up.
Huge.
And, there was a few to choose from. I think there are 5 Argentine players on the radar.
There's quite a few.
There's one of them you will probably know. We're not going to do him.
I mean, you're in his jumper and everything.
Well, it is true. Yeah, we've got Lionel Messi on my jumper, so I'm sure there's a number on the back of this jumper.
We can magically
go
3,
for it.
2, 1.
Da-da! There he is, Lautaro Martinez. Oh, you said that very nicely earlier.
Lautaro Martinez.
Well, there we go. Yeah, it could be Martinez.
It could be.
We should have probably researched that before we came on, but don't worry about that.
Should.
You choose. Do a YouTube search. 26-year-old forward for Internazionale and for Argentina, who, as I said, have got a very, very big game coming up. And clearly with them losing to Saudi Arabia in their opening game, which was a bit of a shocker, a lot got wrapped up in all of that, especially with Messi. But for me, I thought Martinez, as I'm now going to say, was I thought he, certainly when Argentina were in top in the game, you could see what his threat is and what he actually offers to that side.
Yeah, definitely think he grabbed at least one offside goal, didn't he? He might have had another. I can't remember per se. There's that many World Cup games just coming at us every day. 4 games a day. I've had 3 coffees today, so maybe I just need one more coffee a game.
That's a pretty good ratio. Absolutely.
Expected coffee. No, I shouldn't. Stop. Don't do that. He is an interesting player because he's 26, obviously plays for Inter Milan, as you've mentioned, and scored some pretty big goals for them. Last season, I think he got 30 goals for club and country. It's dropped off a little bit this season. There's no, there's signs of that picking up. Definitely, there's a long way to go. He looked bright in that first half, but obviously Argentina have some problems, so it just sort of dropped off a little bit in the second. And I feel like he's a player definitely that will be vital to Argentina in this upcoming game, and whether they come into this tournament wanting to go to the final, and he's the kind of player that can help take them there. For all the talk of Lionel Messi and other players in that team, this is a player you should definitely keep on your radar. Someone who's so versatile and can,
Well, that was a break because we are going to get pizza.
Actual pizza. This is the law of attraction. I said I like pizza. We're showing you some pizza charts. And then someone knocks on the door and says, do you want some pizza? Yeah, I do want some pizza. There's never a time when I will say no to pizza. And speaking of pizza,
pizza. What chart? Pizza chart.
We must have a pizza chart for Lautaro Martinez.
Good shout, Kiva. And there it is. I mean, the thing is obviously sticks out like a big pizza thumb is the blue wedge there, which is his shot volume. And this is a striker who loves to take an early shot, get the ball away and score if he can. He sort of makes that happen. But the thing that probably sticks out to me are the red chunks, because you've got to hear a forward who works incredibly hard to try and disrupt what the opposition are doing. He's clearly like first line of the press, and he works really hard at that as well, which we didn't see much from that.
That defense almost starts from the front. He's a player who will, press, pick up loose balls, that kind of thing. In terms of, like you mentioned, the energy that he brings, it kind of, I think it was mentioned in the radar that it transcends the team. So either Inter Milan or Argentina, from up top, and then that just sort of filters back, which I think is really important to have those players in the team. You sort of, everyone else sort of, are picked up by and can feed off their energy a little bit. And I think, in terms of taking on those shots early, there's nothing sweeter almost than saying, shoot. And they actually, do take that shot on early, can catch goalkeepers out and that kind of thing. I think that's, one of his sort of qualities that I've noticed. I think he scored against Liverpool, and it was probably taking the shot on early, which did that for him. But yeah.
Still hurts.
That many goals. Can't remember them all.
No, it's fair enough. Nor should you. And the one thing that gets me as well is he does seem to be quite a clutch player. It's noticeable. He's now won everything in Italy. He scored in the quarterfinals and the semifinals for Argentina when they won the Copa America, in Brazil, of course, which was earlier this year. First tournament trophy they've won since 1993. And he actually had more goal contributions per 90 minutes than Messi during World Cup qualifying. So you wouldn't want to underestimate the importance he has in this team, and just taking some of the burden off Messi, because you know how much of that he's carrying himself. You know, it feels like he's having to take everything on. So again, it's probably crucial that they managed to make the most out of Martinez as well.
Yeah, definitely. You look at Inter Milan and the impact he had there, helping them lift the first Scudetto in, was it a decade? And obviously he's done a similar thing with Argentina. They hadn't won nothing since, I think, 1993. You know, he's sort of been a figure that's helped them get over the line, and that was really important, and why, you know, we've come into this tournament talking about Argentina having won that Copa America in Brazil, against Brazil, as you mentioned. And I feel like, yeah, he's a player that needs to start ticking over to really get this Argentina team through. But, you know, massive games coming up for them in these final two group encounters, and he's going to be a player who, you know, is integral to whether they do get out of the group, which is something I didn't even think we'd be questioning, but here we are.
Thank you, Kiva. That was lovely.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again the next day. Enjoy the World Cup action.
Hello and welcome back to London. So what a big day we've got ahead. Obviously, as me and Michael Bailey chatted about there, we've got that Argentina-Mexico game, which just feels incredibly massive for Argentina. Who can imagine them going out the World Cup at such an early stage? It's unimaginable almost. We've also got France in action against Denmark. That'll be earlier in the day. Obviously Poland, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia and Australia is the first game coming right up. So yeah, keep across all the games. We've got live coverage on The Athletic. We have live blogs. We'll be reacting with news stories, and we're bringing you all the best content. And we've got a Black Friday deal, which you should check out, which is running across the weekend. So yeah, it's our deal of the year. Make sure you get on that. And I think we've got a clip of some Argentina fans to end the show with, which is, yeah, they're in good spirits, even though they could be on the brink of elimination.